I am Taylor Haase. This is Danny's Shirey. We are coming to you from PPG Paints Arena, where the Penguins just lost 5-2 to the Maple Leafs. There's a lot we want to get to. I mean, Teddy Blueger came back. DeSmith started. Top line didn't look that great, but I guess I'm going to start with the goaltending. Just Casey DeSmith, what do you see from him in this game?
Well, Casey DeSmith played pretty well his past couple starts. I don't know that he played all that poorly tonight, but, you know, again, he's a backup goaltender, and I don't know that he did a whole lot to really help the Penguins out tonight. He did make a couple of nice saves, especially later as the game was going on, and the Penguins started to give up some more odd-man rushes. They were at least trying to create more offense, but it wasn't really leading to a whole lot more offense, especially in the third period. And I think in the third period alone, they probably gave up 5, 6, maybe even 7 odd-man rushes. Like it seemed like basically every time they ended up down in the offensive zone when the Maple Leafs were going back the other way, they had an odd-man rush. And after the game, DeSmith said he felt like they were giving up some more odd-man rushes, especially compared to how they played up in Toronto and Montreal. So obviously it was a disappointing result for him. I don't know how much he hurt them, but again, I don't know that he was helping a whole lot.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty clear that, at least over the past couple of weeks, the Penguins are not getting their best out of their goaltending. You know, their goaltenders aren't stealing them any games. Obviously, Tristan Jarry is dealing with something minor injury. That became pretty. It could have been more clear to me in DC. That was the first game of that road trip. They had 3 games in 4 days. Casey got that start. I remember seeing right away at the morning skate. Normally, if a goaltender is backing up, only one goaltender participates in the morning skate, it's the backup. But Jarry did not participate in the morning skate, and he backed up. And I saw him working with an athletic trainer both during the morning skate and after the game. So I'm like, okay, Jarry's dealing with something. And then in Toronto, DeSmith started again. And then Jarry did say after Montreal that, you know, he was asked, was it frustrating to not get the last 2 starts? And he said, like, well, I've been dealing with some physical issues that have impacted his play. He's trying to work through that. So that's not an excuse. That was just like, no, he's not frustrated that he didn't get the starts, because there's an actual reason for that.
Right. And then the interesting part about that, though, is right after Jarry said that to us, we went and asked Mike Sullivan. We're like, yo, this is what Jarry just told us. What do you have to say about that? Are you concerned? Is this impacting him? And Sullivan said no. So obviously there seems to be a little discrepancy between the two. Obviously, you know, Sullivan doesn't necessarily have much of a reason to be like, yeah, my starting goalie's hurt and I'm really concerned about how it's impacting him right now. But at the same time, it's still pretty stark as to what's going on there. Yeah,
and I mean, if Jarry is dealing with something, ideally, you know, you'd sit him, let him work through it, and then bring up Dustin Tokarski. Dustin Tokarski is a third goaltender. He is currently the best goaltender in the AHL. Big part of why Wilkes-Barre went out to a 6-0-1 start to start the season. But the Penguins have no cap space. They have about $80,000. And part of that is because they activated Teddy Blueger from long-term injured reserve, so they have no cap relief. And Teddy Blueger, I mean, obviously very nice to get him back. I think that's a trade you'd rather make. And he made his return in this game. Just what you see from him in his first game in the season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to take him some time to get back in the swing of things, but I mostly saw the Blueger that we've come to know over the past several seasons. Afterward, we talked to him in the locker room. He said that it took him a couple shifts to get his legs under him, but after that, he felt good both physically and mentally. And the encouraging part is that the fourth line tonight, they played close to 10 minutes, if not just a little under, and the entire time they were out there, they only allowed 1 unblocked shot attempt against the entire game. And you know, it was pretty clear the defensive impact that he would have. We didn't see a whole lot from them offensively, and they said that they would, Blueger and Ryan Poehling both said that they would like that line to chip in a little bit more offensively. But, you know, at the same time, the Penguins don't need that fourth line to chip in offensively. If they're limiting the opposition to, you know, basically nothing the entire game in their own end, that's going to be a win. And the Penguins really need to rely on their top 3 lines for their offense. But outside of the second line right now, we're not really getting to a whole lot of that. And I feel like this might be a good transition for us to get to the first line.
Yeah. First line is probably their worst game that we've seen, at least in a while, maybe the whole season.
On the ice for 4 goals against.
It's hard to beat. It's hard to beat that. So they lost 5-2. The only goals was Ricardo Cal. He got a tip on a Jason Zucker shot. Crosby had a typical Crosby backhand shot from the slot. It looked pretty dangerous. Nice to see Crosby get that goal, but yeah, the top line was also on the ice for 4 of the 5 goals against. The only one they were not on the ice for was the empty netter. But I know fans mad about the switch they made with Russ and Raquel, because Raquel was on the top line to start. That line looked pretty good. They put Raquel down to the second line. The second line is showing life, but now Russ on the top line. We're not seeing the success we saw from the top line that we might have seen earlier. Kind of interesting, just because we know that Gensel, Crosby, Russ have had a lot of success in the past, so it's not like they can't find it again, but we're definitely not seeing it right now.
No, definitely not, and I don't mean to place the blame for that line entirely on Brian Russ, because I feel like Sidney Crosby the past week and a half, 2 weeks, he's been playing pretty uncharacteristically poorly. We've been seeing him force passes that aren't there. We've been seeing him make passes to nobody, which you never see him do. And I feel like he hasn't been as engaged on the forecheck. Sometimes when you need that little bit of an extra push to maybe get to a loose puck or win a board battle, we haven't really seen that from him. But going back to Rust, he's creating chances somewhat, but at the same time, I feel like the rest of his play just is not up to par and where it needs to be. And it's just very jarring that nothing has been done about this, because we obviously know that Raquel and Crosby have shown a ton of chemistry together, and to start the season, Zucker, Malk, and Rust were the best line in hockey. I will die on that hill that they were that good early on. So when Rust had that success with Malkin early on, I don't know why you wouldn't try and go back to that to get him going, because if you have both of your top lines that are balanced versus one that's doing well and one that's not doing well at all, that's just hurting you, especially when you've got a fourth line that didn't chip in all that much offensively like you have tonight.
Yeah, it's been about 3 weeks, I think, since they made that change. I asked both Crosby and Sullivan about it after the game. I asked Crosby just what kind of impact that has on the line, depending on who's up there, and he said he doesn't really have one. I mean, it's not like he's going to say, like, well, yeah, I would definitely rather play with Ricardo Cal. Yeah, he didn't have a whole lot either way to say on it. Sullivan, he said, the second line has been good. The first line has had its moments, which, again, he's not going to, rip any of the lines either, but I think that's pretty clear that he's aware that the first line has, as a whole, been underperforming. He doesn't need us to tell him that. And then he did say it's a conversation they have daily. They know they have options. They're trying to put together the best, 4 lines they can put together on the ice. It's a cliche I think I was expecting to get from him, but yeah, it's obviously not set in stone. They know that they don't need us to tell them. They don't need us to ask every single game, like, why is the top line not great? They see that. They're trying to weigh those out, because the second line has looked better. So that's what it is. That's why they're keeping them where they are.
Yeah, and I understand that thought process. I just don't necessarily agree with it. But again, I'm not coaching the Penguins. That's why I'm writing about them instead. So
yeah. Penguins, they go on the road, Minnesota, Winnipeg, and then Chicago. Obviously Winnipeg, that's Dayan's trip, you know he's not going to miss that. So he's going to Minnesota, Winnipeg, and then I'll be taking over in Chicago, which if Malkin plays all games, that will be game number 1,000 for him. So pretty big road trip here coming up. Looking forward to going to Chicago. So stay tuned for all of our coverage on DK Pittsburgh Sports.